Beastie Boys fans, that Beastie Boys memoir is going to come out this year. Breaking news in the world of the Beastie Boys as Mike D sat with Matt Wilkinson on Beats One and spoke about this infamous memoir / biography, whatever you want to call it, that has been in the works since 2013. We thought it was going to be released in 2015, and then we never got it. And here we are, it's 2018, and we're still wondering, where's the Beastie Boys memoir? Mike D revealed that they are going to finish it, and it is going to come out finally. Speaking to Beats One, this is exactly what Mike D had to say.
Like many things we embark on, there are many false starts and honestly directions we went in that we realized were not the directions we should be going in. But it's going to be coming out in fall of this year.
I'm not crazy about the way he said fall, because it was kind of like, I don't know, is there? But I think fall would be the time. And even if we have to wait a little bit later, it's definitely worth the wait. I mean, we've been hearing hype about this book for the longest time. Back in 2013, Random House talked about Mike D and Ad Rock sitting down to write this thing. And they said, quote, the pair was interested in challenging the form and making the book a multi-dimensional experience. I don't know what that means. There is a kaleidoscope frame of reference, and it asks the reader to keep up, end quote. So that's what Random House said about the pair of Mike D and Ad Rock writing this Beastie Boy memoir. Mike D went on to say something else pretty interesting about the way he interprets, music biographies and documentaries, and I wanted to play that clip for you too, because I think it's important as far as trying to understand what they're going for with this memoir.
I'd say it like this: like, to tell our story, we have to tell the story of give the cultural history of where we came from. So New York City in the 80s, you had all this incredible, exciting music, art, film, all of that sort of has to converge to be able to explain. We just had the good fortune of being around all of it. So I think that's number one. And the other thing is just, I think a lot of times when I read a band book or I watch a music documentary, I get, maybe I'm just kind of ADD. I get a little bored, but I get a little bored. And I think, but actually I don't think that they do the subject matter justice, because it's kind of surreal what happens in bands' lives. So you kind of have to use all dimensions to kind of tell the story.
So I like what he says about using all the dimensions to tell the story, because I couldn't agree more with him. Like, understanding the context of where a person came from, to me, is getting the base, that lower level of the foundation, really, of understanding that person. We're all an element of our environment. So you really got to understand where a person or a group is coming from in order to understand their story and how they came about. Like, look, it's great to be like, oh, who gave you your first guitar, or, what was the first club you played in? Like, it's great to know all that information, but unless you have that context of knowing where all these guys came from and what was happening in the world at the time, you're not going to really connect to it as much. So I think that's all the super important stuff. Like Mike D says, New York City in the 80s, it was a super interesting time, to be here in the city during that time period with everything that was going on in the world and the city itself and in the music world at the same time. So considering all that, the fact that the Beastie Boys were able to, come to prominence in that time period, it makes it even more interesting. We're used to the Beastie Boys being around now, but when you go back then and where hip hop / rock was during that time and what they were able to do with their careers and their music, it just makes it all the more extraordinary. I'm with Mike D on this one. I really like when you're, getting the story, whether it's a musician or whomever, when you get that context of their whole world and what's going on. To me, it just really drives the point home. We talked about the Neil Young archive, and it was super cool that you can listen to the music, in super high definition studio quality. It's awesome to do that. It's cool to see the liner notes and being able to see some of the photos that were taken around that time, promo photos or studio photos. But what I really love about the Neil Young archive, where I really think it gets super complete, is Neil, also amongst the timeline of his releases, gives you world events that were happening, which is super important for Neil Young because, he's an artist that reflects the times. He writes about a lot that's going on in the world and how he sees it, and that's how he passes it through to us through his music. So to understand that context of what was happening, at the time, and then he wrote this song, and then that's how this, it puts the whole picture together for you. That's what I love about the Neil Young archives, and that's what's pretty exciting about this, about this Beastie Boys memoirs. Now, I don't know what multi-dimensional experience means. I have no idea what they're talking about there, but I'm excited about it. And the fact that they're trying to challenge the form and not go with the norm, again, I can't even fathom or assume or guess what they could be talking about. I'm not really sure, other than if they're going to put like QR codes in their book that you can shoot your phone at and then get like a little video or story explain. I really don't know. It's the only thing I can think of on how you make a book multidimensional. But maybe they just mean from the aspect of how they're going to do the storytelling, because you could almost tell the story of the Beastie Boys by just telling the story of the New York music scene in the 80s when they came out. So, that in itself, like everything else, open for interpretation. But that's what we know so far about the Beastie Boys memoir. Fall, at least sometime this year. When we get an exact date, we'll be sure to let you know here on our Daily Music News channel.